All things considered, Hollywood is practically done for 2023. No big tentpole release is coming out on the final weekend, so we can take a look back on the year that was, and you would be forgiven if you take a look at the top 5 studio rankings, the highest grossing studios. You would take a look at the numbers that are presented in front of you and think, oh, you know what? Hey, $1.887 billion for Disney, just about $1 billion for Sony without like a proper Spider-Man film coming out. Paramount, $840 million. That's really not bad, okay? Maybe Hollywood is in a decent place after all, but then you gotta really cast your mind back and you gotta do a reassessment on the films that came out this year, how much they cost opposed to how much they pulled in, and realize that Hollywood took a historic beating in 2023, okay? Because this is a not fully exhaustive list provided by Looper, but it covers so much from so many different movie houses that, oh lord, it was terrible. I think we already knew that because, well, for the better part of the year, I've been documenting this. You guys have been following along, and yeah, it started early, it continued often, and it crescendoed right there at the end of the year. It was horrific. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of these numbers and let's see if that math is mathin'. The film industry is seeing a major tide shift. People are returning to the movie theaters nearly 2 years after the Yo, man, we're at the end of 2023. Can we just chill with the pandemic stuff? Ravaged the film industry and box office receipts. Considered the 2 highest grossing movies of 2022, Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water, which, yeah, ended up, depending on how they counted that stuff, okay, ended up attributing very well for Disney to offset some of their horrific disasters that I just covered in its own specific video. So those films will obviously be touched on, but I want to talk about the rest of the wider industry, specifically Warner. But okay, Avatar played quite a bit in order to bolster the bottom line for Disney. However, not everything has returned to how it was before the pandemic. As a result of the rise of exclusive streaming releases, audiences have become much more selective about what kinds of movies they will pay to watch in theaters. Given it often only takes a few weeks for those same movies to appear on the streaming platforms, viewed on the comfort of their homes. Yes, that's an excuse. That's one of those excuses that pathetic executives will go ahead and walk out upon a disappointing release. Not point to the obvious flaws with the film, but simply go, no. You guys just don't understand. You guys just don't get it, okay? You could get it on the streaming services that nobody's paying for anymore. A month and a half, 2 months later. That's why. Nobody's going to the theaters anymore. It's just faulty logic. Some of these films were greenlit before the pandemic when the markets were vastly different. No. People still wanted good films. It's just years and years of being inundated with slop is finally coming back on those same executives and forcing them to reconcile with their bad decision making. So here are the biggest box office flops in no specific order. I do believe it's in chronological order though, so we can go ahead and assess them as we will. Starting off with, a Nicolas Cage film and a bomb. Who could have possibly seen that coming? I understand now the reappraisal of the meme value of a Nicolas Cage movie, but let's be completely honest, man. Like, he was never really that much of a box office draw. And this one was always going to be goofy. It was never going to be anything more than a meme film. Renfield, it was always just sold on the fact that Nicolas Cage was going to deliver the most Nicolas Cage over-the-top performance. And yeah, a couple of people turned out for it. Renfield opened to a measly $10 million on a $65 million budget. That's not good. Facing stiff competition from other April releases like The Pope's Exorcist. Yeah, that was a low-budget horror film that performed extremely well, something that was also reasonably prevalent throughout the year, and the Super Mario Brothers movie, which was a film that placed second on the year. It held that crown as the highest-grossing film, and probably one of the most well-regarded, at least in the family genre. Like, nobody hates the Super Mario Brothers movie. It's just like, the plot's a little bit thin, but the characters are good, and it's really inoffensive. That's what you'll hear from that, as opposed to Barbie, which is supposed to tackle a similar audience, just with a heaping helping of feminism slathered over the top of it. Given that the character of Dracula has had a haunting legacy in the horror in horror for the past century. Viewers who came to watch Renfield expecting a scary movie were disappointed. I don't think anybody expected a scary movie knowing who was cast in that, but okay. We're disappointed to find the comedy aspects were dominant and particularly important, considering that horror films are known to be profitable at the box office. Yes. Was it Thanksgiving? Eli Roth's Thanksgiving that completely and totally trounced the Marvels in the later stages? Yeah. And then also over the top of Indiana Jones, which we'll obviously be talking about here very shortly. It ended up getting dog-walked by the new installment in the Insidious franchise. It's almost like if Hollywood was paying attention, there's a little bit of a trend right there where if you spend less on a film for a more niche market, you could potentially strike gold in multiple different smaller markets instead of just trying to put all of your eggs in one basket. But who am I kidding? Hollywood's never going to learn the correct lessons. Renfield faced, yes, direct competition from The Pope's Exorcist, which these are two disparate types of films. Okay, Renfield was always a comedy. Why are you trying to make this comparison? It ended up raking in a worldwide gross of $66 million. Additionally, Universal's decision to release Renfield just a week after their own commercial juggernaut, the Super Mario Brothers movie, could be deemed questionable. The Pope's Exorcist producer Jeff Katz took to Twitter to express his glee. Looks like The Pope's Exorcist is coming in ahead of Renfield to debut in second place this week, beating our direct competition. Moral of the story is the genre pictures should generally only be made for a small for a smart price. I'd imagine it should be small price. Whole point is that it's able to hit singles and doubles and still potentially come back for more. Popes will be profitable for Sony's entirely because of this approach. Yes, because when you do the complete inverse, okay, you make $66 million on an $18 million budget as opposed to Renfield that made $10 million on a $65 million budget. Comedy and horror, you can do the exact same thing with the same amount of money. All about the execution, which if Hollywood doesn't get its stuff together in 2024 is going to be a very prevalent word. Oh my lord, now we're heading into some deep water. Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Remember that came out this year? Shazam truly did face the fury of the box office gods this year, raking in $30.5 million in its opening weekend. Shazam! Fury of the Gods was the worst opening for the DCEU film that wasn't released during the pandemic. It only held that crown for a little while, and then there was a little blue Mexican insect that came along and was like, go ahead and take that crown, man. Especially when compared to the $53.5 million opening for its 2019 predecessor. Worldwide take was just over $130 million on a $110 million budget, with another $100 million in marketing costs, which is, of course, very prevalent with a lot of these higher budget films. So, Shazam ended up losing a few $100 million for Warner, but oh wait, there's more. 65. Okay, 65. You probably didn't hear about this. You absolutely did not, okay? Even if you are an Adam Driver fan. It was a time-traveling dinosaur hunter movie. Sounds fun, right? But for the people that did watch it, it was apparently total ass. And I said for the people that watch it because, guess what, guys? Nobody watched it. 65 is an original science fiction film that is not part of a larger franchise. A rare creature these days, the film follows a space pilot, Adam Driver, and a young girl, Ariana Greenblatt, as their ship crashes into a dinosaur-infested Earth, following their efforts to make their way through the perilous habit of the prehistoric planet. Film's marketing banked on Driver's fan following, so much so that the film is colloquially referred to as Adam Driver's 65. Sure it is. 65's reported budget was around $91 million. This expensive film was also released in March of 2023, a month when audiences had several other films to choose from at the cinema-going experience. I think Super Mario was out at the same time as well, so yeah, it kind of dominated everything. Yeah, 65 competed with franchise flicks that fans eagerly looked forward to, such as Scream 6, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Creed 3. Oof. With movies released early in the year still running wild, brother. Last Wish, yes, Puss in Boots, Last Witch, which was apparently very good, and yes, Avatar and the Way of Water. Made a lot of money. Nobody talks about it anymore. It's so spectacularly perplexing as to what happened with that franchise. But the $91 million budget as compared to how much it made, and I'm just doing a little off-the-cuff research, and ooh, buddy, just a little bit over worldwide box office haul for 60 million. At least it would have been a little bit more appropriate if it would have made, $4 million more, but they can't all be winners. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This film, I remember its marketing closer to the beginning of the year, and oh boy, it looked like a dumpster fire. And then it came out and people went and watched it. Some people did, and it's like, no, it's actually, pretty decent. But it did itself a grave disservice by people associated with the film coming out and saying, no, we're just out here to make fun of our masculine characters. And it's like, we don't want that anymore. And it ended up costing them big at the box office. After a long drawn out legal battle between several studios over the film's adaptation rights to the beloved tabletop game Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves finally hit cinemas in March of 2023 to positive reviews and a solid opening at the box office, garnering $38 million on a project of $30 million in its opening weekend. While the film went on to rake in a worldwide gross of $190 million, there are doubts about whether the fantasy film will be viewed as a success, considering that the film's budget is reported to be $150 million minus a marketing cost. So yeah, throw on another $75 to $100 million, and guess what you end up with? Something that didn't turn a profit. Needed $370 million to break even, ended up making $190 million, which is a shame because people said it's pretty decent. Operation Fortune. I have never even heard about this. Okay, and Aubrey Plaza as the attractive co-leads opposite Jason Statham. Well, it's a bold decision. Didn't end up working out well. Guy Ritchie. Oh, it's a Guy Ritchie film. Okay, have always been hit or miss. This is one of the most insane things that I thought I knew, but then I forgot. But then when it was brought back up, it's like, oh yeah, that did happen. He did the 2019 live-action Aladdin for Disney with the Will Smith cuck genie. It was a Guy Ritchie, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. Did Aladdin, the live-action remake. What? Anyways, Ritchie's latest spy flick, Operation Fortune, Rusa de Guerre, proved its poor fortune with a meager $3.1 million domestic opening. Yeah, that's because he cast Jason Statham in 2023. I've never been a fan of Jason Statham. I remember watching the first Transporter film and thinking, that was one of the first films, okay? Because when did that come out? That came out in like the late 2000s, okay? About a time when, I'm becoming of age as it comes to be a cinema enjoyer, and that was one of the first films where it's like, wow, movies can be really bad, huh? I just always thought that he just lacked any sort of talent, but it only took a couple of decades for everybody else to catch up with that assessment. But opened up, $3.1 million opening, went on to gross $37 million against a $50 million budget. Aren't gonna be getting another Operation Fortune. Ugh. Oh, is a Joaquin Phoenix burn victim movie? Like, what are we dealing with here? In the months since its release, Beau is Afraid has made just $8.3 million on a budget of $35 million. Oh, and it's an A24 film. And good thing that they struck it big with, last year that was Everything Everywhere All at Once, and this year, as we speak right now, they've got Iron Claw in the cinema, which is receiving incredibly good reviews and doing decently at the box office at a time where, Hollywood couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. But that's kind of sad, man, because they had everything going for it on this one, except for, I don't know, maybe a compelling story and attracting anybody with, okay, Beau is Afraid. What's it about? We have Joaquin Phoenix. Okay, well, what's it about? I don't know. He's in a wheelchair. Large budget for an indie film. Writer-director Ari Aster was given complete free rein over the canvas to splash grandiose strokes of his distinctly absurdist style. But this, unfortunately, is why the film polarized audiences so much. One wing of the polarized celebrated Astor's nonconformist filmmaking. Oh, so it's a bunch of postmodernist crap. No wonder it didn't succeed. Oh, he did Midsummer. Ugh. I was afraid, yes, $24 million. Okay. Even though Beau is Afraid topped the 2023 indie box office, a record collection of $320,000 from 4 theaters in its opening weekend, it's likely the film will become a huge financial loss. Yeah, for A24, so you're going to have to walk that back. Guy Ritchie? He had 2 films come out this year, and he had Jake Gyllenhaal in this one. Yo, man, what the hell is going on? Of all the filmmakers you could expect to appearing more on this list more than once, Guy Ritchie is perhaps the least likely pick. His second release in 2023, and Guy Ritchie's The Covenant is the best reviewed film or movie to date. Yeah, an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I guess that didn't end up translating to success. Worldwide gross of $15 million. I didn't even hear about this. I have no idea when it even came out. And a bloated $55 million budget. That's not good. The bomb could be blamed on the film's minimal marketing. Yeah, like I said, and I've followed this stuff fairly closely. I hadn't even heard about this at all, okay? And that's not even like a lapse, and it's like, oh, The Covenant. That's Guy Ritchie, right? No, it's just I've never heard of it. What are we doing? 15 million pulls in $55 million. Got a release in 2,600 theaters. Owned by Amazon. Like, it was set up for success, except for when it came out and didn't do anything. And speaking of coming out, did you know that there was a Magic Mike film that came out? Okay, that was a phenomenon, okay, for a bunch of box wine enthusiast cat moms from the late 2000s, early 2010s, when, what was it? It was Magic Mike, and then Magic Mike double XL or X, whatever, man. Like, back when Channing Tatum was, pegged, pun somewhat intended, to be the next leading man in Hollywood, and then Macklemore came out and totally stole his complete flow, and he's one of those legendary fall-offs that I don't even know what happened. Like, he had the 21 and 22 Jump Street. He was moving. Like, he was a mover and shaker, and then it just all went away. It's crazy. $40 million budget plus $20 million in marketing. Magic Mike's final outing proved to be the most expensive as well and the least profitable in the franchise. While Magic Mike's Last Dance topped the box office in its opening weekend with a collection of $8.2 million. Yo, the film ended its theatrical run with a worldwide gross of $56 million. Far cry from the profitability of its predecessor in comparison. 2012's Magic Mike, okay, that's when it came out, earned a global $170 million. And its sequel, Magic Mike Double XL, $123 million. So already there was a fall off, and they knew at the time in 2015. It's like, okay, cool. We got lightning in a bottle the first time around, kind of fell off the second time around, and it's like, we'll just go ahead and, just put it on ice for the better part of a decade and then come back with half of the profitability. Yeah, not exactly a winning formula. Magic Mike's Last Dance was originally produced to be an HBO Max exclusive. Oh, okay, until Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, who's normally a pretty smart guy when it comes to penny pinching, decided, no, we can go ahead and put the not quite Chippendales film in the theaters. What were you thinking? And hey, man, sucks to suck. And a George Foreman biopic. What? Big George Foreman? I hadn't heard about this at all. That would have been awesome, actually. Big George Foreman, the miraculous story of the once and future heavyweight champion of the world, chronicles the rise, fall, and rise again of the boxing legend and entrepreneur George Foreman, produced for a $32 million budget. That doesn't sound that bad. The most expensive project of the production studio Affirm Films, a Christian media subsidiary of Sony Pictures, Big George Foreman was projected to earn $5 million on its opening weekend, only to scrape in at a disappointing $3 million in 3,000 theaters. Yo, it was set up for success, and it just didn't translate. Well, the high budget isn't entirely unreasonable. Yeah, that's really not that bad, okay? Especially in today's landscape. It just, wow, that's crazy. Like, George Foreman, okay, I understand that he was definitely at the tail end of the big heavyweight boxing craze, and right before the resuscitation with Mike Tyson, but come on, man, like, good George Foreman biopic? That would be fantastic. Yeah, given that George Foreman is a household name in the United States, the film's failure could be attributed to an inadequate marketing and a lack of a clear focus on its target audience. Big George Foreman was split on its marketing attempt to appeal to both Christian audiences and sports genre fans. Oh, okay. The film didn't win over either group, and the former considering the film too mainstream and the latter finding it too heavy-handed, faith-oriented. Okay. With a total global gross of just $5.2 million. Yo, that's far. The film shows no signs of recovering its $35 million budget, proving Big George Foreman to be a big loss-making venture. Yeah, you could, because out of all of his kids being known as George, and Georgina, everybody knows that, George Foreman is a fairly vocal Christian man, so yeah, you didn't really need to play so heavy into that stuff. You could have just simply led with the whole, boxing heavyweight champion, okay, his come up story, Fights with Ali, him coming back out of retirement and reclaiming the heavyweight crown. Like, that would have been great, but you didn't do it. Oh well. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. Oh Lord, this looks like a dumpster fire. Nearly 49 years. Okay, for nearly 49 years. Author Judy Blume had outright Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I've probably heard of this. Not the movie. I didn't know that this existed, but at least the novel. Okay, so yeah, from a Judy Blume best-selling 1970 novel until a visit from producer James L. Brooks of Simpsons fame. Writer-director Kelly Freeman Craig, The Edge of 17. Okay, convinced the author that the two would do Margaret justice on the big screen. $30 million budget, $6.8 million. Oh Lord, that probably spent more time on that than anybody else. I gave it credit for Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantumania. I went over that with the previous Disney is Dead in 2023, but just for giggles, right? Quantumania had the highest opening weekend for the Ant-Man franchise with $104 million, theatrical worldwide run of $476 million, lower than the $519 million and $622 for the original and Ant-Man and the Wasp. A huge drop off into its second week, 69% down, but not the worst one that Marvel would experience in the year. Quantumania, 45% tomato score. Rotten Tomatoes makes it the second lowest rating, next to 2021's The Eternals. But can you really take Rotten Tomatoes seriously? But yes, the $476 million take, coupled with the $200 million budget, $100+ million marketing budget, means that, yeah, $700 million was what was needed, but didn't quite get there. Good thing the Guardians ended up making a few dozen $1 million, right? That'll offset things. Then we got Hypnotic. The hell, you got Ben Affleck. This is another one of those things, like the the Covenant, Guy Ritchie's film. So yeah, I actually remember that. You got a Ben Affleck film that did nothing? Strange. Okay. Hypnotic, yeah, directed by Robert Rodriguez. What? Well, a detective, Affleck, and he goes through a mind-bending investigation in search of his missing daughter, fighting the mental influence of a powerful hypnotist. It sounds a little weak, but okay. The thriller opened at just $2.4 million, ended up making $9.4 globally on a $70 million budget. What the hell is going on? Greenlit in 2019 by Solstice Studios, then a newly formed small production company that was also going to distribute the film domestically. The film saw an eager production company jumping on board to contribute to its $70 million budget, and then a pandemic. After production wrapped in 2021, Solstice also had trouble finding a new distributor for Hypnotic. This became a rare situation in which a high-budgeted, completed film with an A-list cast was left without a domestic distributor. Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. Oh, but here we go. Okay. Speaking of throwbacks like Magic Mike, you got the Transformers franchise. Now at a point in time where nobody cares and they just look at them as the meme films that they have always been. Now you decide to pivot and try to go into the Beast Wars side of this stuff. Like, that's cool, and I'm a big Transformers guy. It's not something that I talk about often, but it's one of those. Of all of the cartoons that were out, back in the early 90s, there's a few things that, are near and dear to my heart. We got Power Rangers, not a cartoon, but, in that same vein. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers. That was my jam, okay? And the original, the proto-CGI Beast Wars stuff, I watched that stuff all the time. So this one should have been right up my alley, but this was up nobody's alley because it sucked. Even though 2023's Transformers Rise of the Beast is one of the few films in the franchise alongside 2018's Bumblebee that received a decent response from critics and the audience, the film ended up being the lowest grossing in the entire live-action Transformers franchise. Rise of the Beast collected a worldwide gross of $436 million, a budget of $195 million. Again, we can all pretty much run the numbers on that one and realize that one right there took a bath of about $100 and some odd million. Elemental with the non-binary first for Pixar. Ugh. Guys, it actually broke even. Yeah, but guys, it cost $200 million to make a cartoon. What are we doing? Not quite as bad as Lightyear, but with that logic, losing your leg isn't quite as bad as a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis. Like, come on, man. If you got to play whataboutism, what are we doing here? $200 million. Ended up making, $443. So again, didn't make money, but guys, it was a big hit on streaming. Actually, if you don't run the numbers correctly, it did end up breaking even. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Ooh, yeah, that one. Yeah, that sucks. That sucks. It didn't end up doing what it should have. Really, like Tom Cruise coming off the high of being, box office king in 2022, and hot with a new Mission Impossible, and well, just died at the box office. Like word of mouth about it was pretty good, but maybe for the fact that it was so long, and then also just blatantly set up as a part one of an incomplete story. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. I heard that it was trash, but then at the same time, other people kind of enjoyed it. Franchise's seventh entry was pitted for a Dead Reckoning. I get it. With two other much-awaited summer releases. Yes, Barbenheimer. Dead Reckoning had all the signs of a summer blockbuster hit, including a near-perfect 99% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes with its early reviews. Yeah, it had great early buzz about it, and then it just fell off. It ended up getting swallowed up in the mushroom cloud. Cruise reportedly upset over Dead Reckoning losing its IMAX screens, which generally generate extra revenue for the movies with a higher ticket price, but it really wasn't helping. It ended up costing like $250 million. That's what its budget was, and it only ended up pulling in $522 million globally. Yeah, $291 million. Oh, Lord. So that thing was going to need about 8 bills to break even, and well, fell a little bit short. By little, I mean a lot. So all of the good work that Tom Cruise did with Top Gun, he better hope that Dead Reckoning Part 2 makes up for this catastrophic failure. That sucks. And speaking of catastrophic failures, hey guys, Michael Keaton's Batman is finally back around. Well, guess what? There has been how many different iterations of Batman around? I think the people who tried to say, I don't know why Flash wasn't such a bigger success because Michael Keaton's Batman is back for the first time since 1991. Is that when Returns came out? Because yeah, there has been what? For better or for worse, Val Kilmer's Batman, George Clooney's Batman, Christian Bale's Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman, Kevin Conroy's animated Batman. There's been numerous iterations of the Bat, so I guess what? It was too difficult to do some kind of CGI gobbledygook for Adam West to put back on the cape. Like, it was funny, right? Because the whole idea of superhero fatigue had been quite set in with The Flash because we were still in the afterglow of the failure that was Ant-Man, and, well, DCEU was already announced dead with the relaunch with James Gunn, so people were thinking, well, this is going to be the last big tentpole. Either it's going to make $1 billion or it's going to be a huge failure, but nobody knew how bad the failure was ultimately going to be. Unlike in the past few years when superhero movies from both Marvel and DC top the list of the highest grossing movies nearly every year, 2023 is one such year where the tables have completely turned. Flash ended up being not just the biggest box office bomb of 2023, but one of the biggest bombs ever. Would have been, if not for a couple of other releases still to come on this list. Of about $200 million for Warner, which, what was it? Warner ended up being the third most profitable studio on the air, right? Not even Tom Cruise's endorsement. That was kind of secondhand information that James Gunn collected and went, guys, I really love this. And even Tom Cruise, I thought I overheard, he told somebody else, and somebody told me that he said that. And new DC head James Gunn praises for the film could save it from its bomb. Remember, that thing right there, because we don't have actuals as to how much the budget cost, but everybody is speaking in hushed tones. This thing cost north of $300 million, only made $270 million at the box office. Sheesh. Another film, and oh my god, here's Ben Affleck once again, but I hear great things about this. I think it's streaming on Apple or something like that, but Air, all about, Nike courted basketball legend Michael Jordan into being the face of the brand, grossed $89 million during a 1-month theatrical run on a $90 million budget. Not great. Excluding marketing costs were estimated to be between $40 and $50 million. The numbers would traditionally signal a box office bomb if Air was solely a theatrical movie, but then it went primarily on Amazon Prime, streaming exclusive, that happened to receive a theatrical release. In a unique case, considering that the streaming giant wasn't counting on box office earnings to secure the film's profitability. Hear great things about it, like this steaming pile of shit, which I ended up covering a lot of. I made a few videos on it, not as much as the Marvels, not even as much as Aquaman, I don't think, but I think we all know about the bombing prowess that Indiana Jones 5 ended up heralding. But let's go over it one more time, just for good fun, shall we? The film carried a hefty $295 million price tag. I'm sure Dial of Destiny ended up grossing $370 million worldwide. Far cry from its estimated 600, more like 700, because that price tag will eventually get it figured out, even though that they'll get those tax breaks from Britain. But we'll end up seeing with the tax filings next year. It's going to be so interesting to see what those final budgets are. Gonna be so bad. It's so bad. Yeah, it debuted at the 76th Cannes Film Festival to hushed tones and everybody going, oh my god, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she's not funny, and that mole on her head is very distracting. Even though the previous film in the franchise, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, was released 15 years ago, about 15 years ago, the memory of the critical disappointment most likely didn't help create... Oh yeah. The case of the 2023 sequel. Yeah, because the scuttlebutt around Crystal Skull all the way back 15 years ago was, wow, Harrison Ford is really old. So what do you think they were saying now? Oh God, don't die, Grandpa. Even though he really tried to while they were filming this. Crashing his plane. Oh my God. Then we got this. Like, what? What are we doing here? Ruby Gillman, a teenage Kraken. Didn't hear about it. Okay, but animated movie produced by DreamWorks. From DreamWorks? Okay. Ruby Gillman took in a $5.2 million opening weekend and grossed a total of $41 million on a $70 million budget. Yo! Making it DreamWorks Animation's lowest grossing film ever. Holy Christ. Like, that's a popular sentiment. Just go ahead and switch out the different movie studios, because you had Lucasfilm's lowest grossing film ever, or at least a return on investment, okay, with Indiana Jones. Marvel, we haven't even got to its biggest disaster yet. Warner Brothers with The Flash. Like, holy. At least, yeah, Universal can go ahead and go, well, okay, cool. Well, DreamWorks ended up, laying an egg. At least we got Super Mario Brothers. Okay, they'll just kind of, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, right? Knights of the Zodiac was an anime adaptation or something like that. Yeah, okay. And just like most of your traditional anime adaptations, it was complete and utter dog water. Knights of the Zodiac made just $6.9 million against a $60 million budget. I think you know exactly what time it is. That ain't good. Oh my god, and there we got Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle! Let's talk about Blue Beetle and how bad this thing was. Oh my god, after Shazam, after The Flash, decided, you know what will really turn things around? Blue Beetle. Everybody went, what's Blue Beetle? Despite garnering better critical response than its predecessors. Yeah, John Wayne Gacy has a better public reputation than Ted Bundy, but what are we doing? The film ended its theatrical run with $129 million on a $104 million budget. Guess what, guys? The first, at least that is spoken by James Gunn, the first DCEU character in Blue Beetle, well, didn't get off on the right foot, if you will. But probably the most noteworthy development from this film was that they tried to blame a Hurricane Hillary, that was running up the West Coast, for the fact that nobody across the country, nobody across the world went and seen this. That was just icing on the cake. Then we have The Creator, which was a unique science fiction franchise. Didn't come... Oh, I'm sorry, not a franchise, but film rather, sans franchise from the guy who brought the only tolerable Disney Star Wars film, right? Gareth Edwards. Well, he was originally a part of the project, and then he ended up leaving, and then he created The Creator. And well, people liked it. Nobody went and seen it, but people liked it. Much like 65, The Creator was another non-franchise sci-fi movie based on an original concept that failed to make its mark at the year's box office. While The Creator received a lukewarm response from critics, audiences instead chose to spend their weekend ticket money on family-friendly Paw Patrol: The Mighty Movie. Yeah, I'm sure, because you have this high-concept science fiction film, but no. People would rather go check out the cartoon dogs. Okay. Or the much-awaited horror sequel, Saw 10, right, resulted in a dismal $14 million opening weekend, the production budget of $80 million. The film crawled up to a final global gross of $104 million, but as we know, ladies and gentlemen, that is not a success at all. Haunted Mansion, oh my god, we talked about this one before, and holy god. Any other year, this would be catastrophic, and people would be scratching their heads going, Disney, what are you doing? But it just kind of blends into the background. But let us not forget that they spent $150 million to reboot concept that failed spectacularly in the early 2000s, back when Disney was trying to make all of their theme parks successful movie franchises. They had Eddie Murphy attached to the original Haunted Mansion, and it did nothing. So they decided to stick a chick in it and make it lame. $117 million on a $150 million production budget. Hundreds, millions of dollars lost out the window. Oh my lord. Expendables. I liked the first one. The first one was decent. It was fine. It was nothing spectacular. The second one, didn't bother watching. Third one, the PG Expendables film, okay, that is all supposed to be a collaboration of an 80s and 90s action stars. It doesn't quite work. And then with the fourth one, you decide you're heavy hitters. Okay, this time around, you're going to get what? Arnie's going to be coming back? No. Bruce Willis, he's already retired earlier this year. Very sad state of affairs. Dolph Lundgren, sort of, he's going to be in the background. JCVD, Jean-Claude, going to be getting, got Megan Fox. Sorry, what? And, Sylvester Stallone, his death is going to get teased earlier in the film, and then he's only going to come back in the last 5 minutes, so it's going to be carried by Jason Statham. Nobody likes this film. Holy. Sitting at 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, the film made $51 million. That is about $50 million more than it deserved to make on a $100 million budget. How? Nobody good was attached to this. I think Jai Courtney was in it. Okay, just to let you know about the quality that is associated with this disaster. Man, here's the thing. When everybody in Hollywood is looking for the new trend to hop on because superheroes, obviously, they drove that completely and totally into the ground. Low budget action films, heavy emphasis on the low budget. Those are ones that you can take a look at because they name drop some other ones here. The John Wick, those films, I'm pretty sure the production budget on those nowhere close to 9 digits. They aren't hitting that $100 million club, and they print money. Even The Equalizer, for the middling success that it was in 2023, there was a third one that came out. People liked it. Not too many people went and watched it, but I think it at least broke even, or maybe even made a middling profit. But when you spend $100 million on a meme franchise, you get what you deserve. Love Again, I have no idea what this is. Okay, follows Mira, Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Okay, fantastic. Okay. They have a rom-com or something like that? Rom-com that made $2.4 million on its opening weekend. Ugh. I don't know what the budget is. I'm sure it was probably too much, and it made not enough. Best of luck to you. Sell the project to Bollywood next time. Dumb Money? Oh, a Pete Davidson vehicle. Fantastic stuff. Dumb Money raked in a little over $20 million against a $30 million budget. Had Paul Dano, Vincent D'Onofrio, Seth Rogen. Oh my God, how much cancer can you fit into one film? Thank God I never heard of it, and even spending any more time on that is more than it deserves. Strays. Okay, I did a little bit of pre-reading on this one because it made absolutely no sense to me at all whatsoever, mostly because I thought it was a spin-off of, if you remember that other story from earlier this year, there was a guy who spent $5,000 in order to make a border collie costume. I thought that was his movie because there's something off about that collie that's standing there, but no, it's kind of cut from the same cloth, and I think they use the reference of Ted, okay, the anthropomorphic teddy bear that comes to life, Mark Wahlberg vehicle that came out in the early 2010s, okay, Seth MacFarlane gimmick, okay, that's what it's supposed to be like. When you got the weird live action animals, sort of like Air Bud-esque with a bunch of F words getting thrown in, it's not going to do well. The trailer for Strays, virtually its only identifiable piece of marketing, advertises the R-rated comedy about a trope of potty-mouthed dogs. It was made from a studio that also made 2012's Ted, which they were too busy marketing the, I think, was there a Ted prequel TV series coming out? Hope was that Strays would match the $500 million global success of Ted, but greenlighting the $46 million? Holy. The makers seem to have forgotten that in 11 years since Ted released, theatrical R-rated comedies haven't really came out. Okay, the result was Strays faltered with an $8.2 million opening, ending its, total run after a few weeks, $36 million. Yikes. Speaking of, concepts completely and totally out of time, The Machine, a Bert Kreischer movie. Bert Kreischer. So this would have hit totally different back when he was at his zenith. in the early 2010s. What is with Hollywood and totally missing the point time and time again? Like, there was a time where you couldn't go anywhere in comedy without hearing about that rotund goof. And I'm not speaking about Mark Hamill, but Bert Kreischer, him telling his stupid story about how he got entangled with the Russian mob and then he just takes off his shirt on stage. Like, that was played out 5 years ago, so why would anybody go to the theater and check that out now? The comedy that faced a brutal box office in 2023 was The Machine, starring comedian Bert Kreischer as himself and Mark Hamill as a fictitious father in a pseudo-adaptation of Kreischer's popular stand-up routine. As amusing as the routine may have been, heavy emphasis on the have, the film failed to amuse critics, amassing a dismal 32% tomato score on Rotten Tomatoes, with the site's consensus labeling the film as broken beyond repair. Furthermore, the film found difficulty in appealing to audiences outside of Kreischer's fan base. Yeah, exactly. And that came out Memorial Day? Didn't even know about that. Resulting in The Machine making $10.6 million on a $20 million budget. At least they had the right idea behind the $20 million budget, but still failed. Still failed spectacularly. This one. Oh, God, Killers of the Flower Moon. Now listen, man, I love me some Martin Scorsese, okay? Casino, Goodfellas, Raging Bull. These are the jewels from the belt. He's one of the titans of cinema, uncontestedly. He might have some snooty opinions on what is cinema, but it really doesn't much matter, man. Like, he makes hit after hit after hit, banger after banger after banger. He puts out this long, drawn-out, boring pile of crap that nobody really cares all that much about. It's like, yeah, it's well made, but oh boy, does it drag. Then you get what you deserve. While filmmaker Martin Scorsese carries a lot of prestige to his name, it's arguably whether he or his films are box office draws. The director's last hit, 2013's, wow, yeah, Wolf of Wall Street's 2016's Silence. Sorry, what? Didn't even hear about that one. Collected only $23 million on a $40 million budget. Yeah, Netflix exclusive The Irishman cost $225 million to produce, barely reached $1 million in its limited theatrical release. Yeah, but it was released in like a handful of theaters, so come on now. Similarly, Killers of the Flower Moon grossed only $156 million worldwide. Yeah, because it was just boring. That's what everybody had to say about it. It was just boring on a $200 million budget. That sucks, because there was a point in time where, yeah, you were going to get high quality cinema from Scorsese, but then you were also going to get an engaging plot. Like, you go and watch Goodfellas and tell me that there's a moment in that film where you are bored. It just got to a point, I would argue, in on and around The Departed time, where he just really fell off. And that's the thing, man. Like, there's a lot of great directors who just, do all of their good stuff and then just lose touch of reality. Ridley Scott, chief among them, okay? Alien, Gladiator, ladder entries into the Alien franchise, okay? Now he's going to be making Gladiator 2. I want to die inside whenever I see that. James Cameron, he made all of those high testosterone action epics. Terminator, Aliens, T2. Now he talks about how toxic testosterone is and puts out all of those awful Avatar films. There comes a point in time where everybody just has to realize that it's like, okay, now it's just time to move on. That might be the case for Scorsese. Okay, you're a legend after all, but let's move on. And yeah, now we got Wish, and I think we know all about the disaster that Wish is, even though it's still in theaters and it's still pulling in a couple $1 million a week. It's basically going to be ushered out of the cinema here right quick, okay? It's going to see a steep drop off in the number of screens that it's going to be getting, and nobody's going to care. 2023 marked Disney's 100th anniversary, but the year hasn't been kind to the studios, as Wish was another casualty of its box office woes, grossing just $107 million worldwide on a $200+ million budget. Wasn't the worst disaster of the year for Disney, because we still have one more, but can't go without being stated. Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir, the movie. Okay, what? That was a Netflix film. Okay, like, whatever, man. Okay, $80 million budget, $39.2 million global haul. Not great. Came out during the summer. And oh, speaking of Ridley Scott, I forgot that this was on here. Napoleon, man, like, oof. For as many funny things as he said about how pathetic the French are, it's like, you can't overcome a terrible film. A terrible film. Napoleon, Apple's second major theatrical release after Killers of the Flower Moon, was in a similar situation. Like Scorsese, filmmaker Ridley Scott is highly regarded as a master of his craft. Yes, yet he fell off. Put in a tough spot with a $200 million historical film. Those can turn a profit, guys. Okay, they can. It's just, it needs to be good. $200 million budget places its break even at $500 to $600 million, and so far has made $173 million. It might get close to like 180, 190, but still, it's going to be a disaster. Okay, and Columbia will get a share, but Apple's going to end up eating that one. See, pun not fully intended. But last but certainly not least, I think we already know about this. Barely $200 million, totally out of the box office zeitgeist right now, and the Marvels at over $300 million production budget, somewhere in the realm of $350 million, needing about $850 million to break even, falling about $600 million short. The Marvels capstoned Disney's worst year on record. How does the rest of the industry see this disaster? Well, let's take a look. Grading Disney, Warner Brothers, and other studios in 2023. Well, how did they end up faring? So, Variety's going to run down the major studios that are out there. Obviously, bring everything all together, their highs, their lows, balance everything out, and see what they could do better, okay? Instead of just reading all the preamble. Obviously, we got, who ended up raking in the most, who ended up getting walked the hardest. We can see how the industry sees them, because we can run the numbers until we're blue in the face, but until there's a change within the boys club, we're not going to see any change on the screen. And even still, we're about 5 years out from any meaningful change. But let's see. The first on the docket, we have Disney. Its highs: Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, yes, $845 million at the box office on a $300 million budget. It ended up scraping by. I've seen some estimates in on around $40 million of profit, but in actuality, break even. At least break even. Maybe a little bit of a profit. Maybe a little bit. And then Little Mermaid, come on, man, don't make me laugh. That thing still lost money, but if that's going to be in the high, whatever. And Elemental, well, we just went over the fact that it lost money, so whatever. And then the lows, the Marvels, Wish, Indiana Jones, C+. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Yo, that's how Variety's going to start that, huh? Well, they were also the first to fire the official mass media salvo, sounding the alarm on that Blade disaster and how Marvel is in free fall. That was just a couple of months ago. That was right ahead of the Marvel's release, actually. Disney is still the leader in terms of market share, although it's worth noting that James Cameron Avatar: The Way of Water, released at the end of 2022, grossed more in 2023 than most of the studios would be blockbusters. Exactly. Without Avatar 2, where would Disney be? I'll tell you. Not in the top 5. Yes, they had to reconcile with everything. 7 of their 8 releases this year failing to turn a profit. A disaster, but I did an entire video and dedicated quite a bit on this one, but we already know. And then Paramount, oh God, they released that stupid Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Seth Rogen dog shit. Scream 6 made $169 million. Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie, $197 million. TMNT, Mutant Mayhem, $180 million, and Killers of the Flower Moon. Why is that in there? Why do we know that ended up costing quite a bit? Oh, guess what? Paramount shares in some of the profits, but who bankrolled the movie? Oh, that's Apple. Oh, lucrative deals. Their lows, yes, Mission Impossible, $567 million, and Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, $208 million, but they get a B-. Not too bad. In 2022, they were pulling in huge numbers, and then, yeah, they had some minor successes on some smaller budget stuff, but their big tentpole films didn't end up doing anything at the box office. That's tough, man. That's big tough. But Sony ended up doing pretty decent. They did decently, right? Because they had the one breakaway superhero film. It was animated after all, and 6 of one, half a dozen the other, right? But Spooderman Across the Spider-Verse, where basically sidelined Spider-Man for Miles Morales, $690 million. See how well that follow-up does, though, because, kind of left a bad taste in people's mouth on that one. Equalizer, $190 million. And Napoleon, again, the same type of a situation where you have with Flowers of the Killer Moon, where Sony reaps all the benefits. They can go out there and license that thing until they're blue in the face. Hell, they'll even get some kickbacks by putting it on Apple Plus. They get the benefits. They don't have to worry about any of the losses. And then, of course, yes, Lowe's, Dumb Money, and 65. They ended up with a B. Okay, not bad. People still have faith in Sony. Universal, yeah, that should be an A. 1,000%. Highs, Super Mario Brothers movie, making $1.36 billion. They also had Oppenheimer with a cool $950 million haul. Five Nights at Freddy's being a runaway indie movie success, $289 million. And then Megan, the big sleeper hit of January of 2023, making $180 million on a minuscule budget. Their lows, yeah, still, like Fast X, the 10th installment, the proper mainline installment. I understand that there have been some spin-offs and some attempts, but $704 million didn't end up making the amount of money that they hoped, but still ended up breaking even, sort of, kind of, not bad. The Last Voyage of the Dedimer, the Dedimer, $21.8 million. Didn't even hear about it, but all of that stuff ends up getting wiped away. You can turn, yes, a $12 million Megan movie into a $180 million global phenomenon until the next biggest movie comes along, which is, also under your umbrella. So Universal knocked it out of the ballpark. And speaking of which, Warner Brothers, more uneven than a three-legged table, had Barbie, the biggest film of the year. Nun 2, again, another one of those small-budget horror films making a huge returns, $268 million. Meg 2, a big old meme movie, which should have been Expendables, but it wasn't. Meg 2, The Trench, $395 million, and Wonka, still running through the theaters right now, doing somewhat returns, but okay. And then the lows, yeah, all of the DC stuff, so just about, if Barbie wasn't such a success, would have washed away everything else that they did, but at least for Warner right there. They don't have to worry about any other failing DCEU projects bogging down their future calendar. It's done. It's dusted. It's dead. It's in the ground. Aquaman is going to continue to make whatever it's going to make over its cinematic run. It seems to be doing well internationally, but domestically, Dick with a side of all. Enough for a B+ score, obviously, because if it wasn't for that Snyder-shaped anchor around their neck, they might have been able to dig into that $50 billion hole that Warner is in. Oh, God, it's such a dumb studio. And then, yeah, speaking of dumb studio, or at least bad decisions, you have Apple with the Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon. Again, they end up eating all of the problems, and Sony and Universal just ends up reaping the benefits, so sucks to suck. And then, of course, Lionsgate, which used to be the mark of failure, but they also had John Wick on there, so $440 million. Yeah, and then Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's not making money. Like, it's still a $150 million budget, and it just got to $300 million. It's not making money. Like, come on now. Saw 10, okay, yeah. Had definitely turned a profit, and watching the EFAP coverage on that one, where they did a watch-long and commentary over the top of it, it seemed like the best of the Saw franchise, but that's also like being the tallest midget. Not exactly a big win. And Jesus Revolution. Okay. And yeah, they had some failures, ones of which we talked about, but in the grand scheme of things, John Wick actually did for Lionsgate what Barbie did for Warner Brothers, kind of wiped away the rest of the failures because they're doing it right. And Lionsgate, so strange to think about this, knowing about all the history and everything that they plopped out into the theaters in the past couple of decades. They're throwing a little budgets out to a bunch of different creators, and if something hits, fantastic, and if it doesn't, we'll try again next time. But if Hollywood's going to dig itself out of the hole that it put itself in 2023, it's going to have to go the Lionsgate approach. Can't afford to go the Disney approach. It can only rely on its theme parks for so long, and especially when those numbers are starting to fall off as well, it's only a matter of time before Hollywood becomes more decentralized. The studio structure just falls by the wayside because as entertainment itself gets more decentralized, the studio system, if it wants to continue in any way, shape, and form, it's going to have to start to take some tips from those people that they detest oh so much. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.